The idea we're trying to put across is, look, cut it out or we're going to shut you down.
There is a life and death battle being waged on the high seas, fought with videotape over the practice of drift netting. Environmentalists call these 35-mile-long nets curtains of death. That's because they literally sweep the ocean, trapping and killing nearly every living thing in their path. There are international treaties banning these practices, but they're rarely enforced. So the Sea Shepherd Society sails the oceans with two objectives. First, they're video policemen trying to prove that some nations are illegally netting. Second, they disable the drift net ships in daring, dangerous maneuvers. In the summer of 1990, they target a Japanese drift netting fleet.
It looks like he's got a net out on the right-hand side.
We were gone 8 days before we found the Japanese drift net fleet, and we located them in an area about 1,400 miles due north of Hawaii.
It was late afternoon when we actually finally spotted the boats on the horizon. We could see 3 of them, as I recall.
In line with that first one. Keep going on the same course, then we'll come around on them. I don't want them to run, you know.
Okay.
We've arrived just at the time of evening when they're starting to lay out their nets. So as they're heading along on our port side here, the nets are steadily going out.
I was on board the Sea Shepherd as a reporter there with my cameraman, Jamie Tumulty, who had the Sony Betacam, and I had a Sony Handycam.
The nearest drift net boat is just off to our starboard here. We're closing in, and they've obviously become aware that we're here.
Yes, this is Sea Shepherd. Just want to let you know that we'll be passing close by with the cameras. The video camera is to us what a cannon is on a warship. So instead of going into battle with a row of cannon, we go into battle with a bank of cameras instead.
Okay, we're going in on the second one. He's apparently pulling away.
So there's numerous treaty violations that they're involved in, and we felt that it was our task to enforce those regulations. The idea we're trying to put across is, look, cut it out or we're going to shut you down. So we made a lot of passes in order to observe them, in order to intimidate them, in order to communicate to them that we weren't too happy with what they were doing.
Okay, here we go.
All right.
Hey, you guys up on the bow? Hang on up there.
Whoa.
Hang on, Jamie.
We're gonna get him close.
Hang on.
All right. Whoa. That got there.
Loved it. It's part of the fulfillment of our goal. It was the beginning.
You know, we don't have any light. Tomorrow.
Oh, you gonna take another run at him?
No, not enough light.
We don't have any light.
I got them.
And we were all disappointed that it was getting dark and we couldn't get footage and we had to spend the night because we wanted to get into confrontation right away.
They aren't laying any nets at the moment, so Captain Watson has decided to go into a circular pattern, and we'll circle around them all night to make sure they don't lay any nets, and we'll see them again in the morning.
We did a lot of night filming, taking advantage of the lights on the Japanese fishing vessels.
You can see the net here. They're hauling it in pretty fast. I don't know whether it's because they're trying to get him up because we're around, or whether, in fact, this isn't much of a catch.
There's over 250,000 marine mammals killed every year in these nets, and over 1 million seabirds. So it's an extremely destructive practice. And for the most part, it's out of sight and it's out of mind.
Okay, it's 1 in the morning. The crew is out here preparing for tomorrow's action.
We knew that one of our tactics may be to ram them, so everyone on board became aware and prepared for a ramming, making sure everything was safe, making sure the life vests were out, making sure safety equipment was ready.
Nobody slept. Any possibility was arranged for. Cameras were brought out, Zodiacs were brought out, and camera equipment loaded onto them. The ship was in general made ready for confrontation.
Okay, it's 8:45 in the morning, and a decision has been taken.
Everything was running, the captain was in the wheelhouse, everything was ready to go, and it was just dependent on the cameraman as to when the signal would be given.
How's life for you, Mark?
I can shoot any time now, but, you know, the more light, the better, but I can go any time.
Our first consideration in planning a campaign is, can we physically interfere without causing any injuries or making sure nobody gets killed? Can we document this sufficiently so that we can have an impact with the documentation?
The captain came up from behind, and then he aimed for the power block, which is a unit that pulls the Drefnet in, a very expensive unit.
We're going to take out the side of the vessel where they're loading the nets, try and make that useless for them to continue that kind of operation. Get ready. You want to tell those guys down in the engine room to stand by?
It was a little eerie down in the engine room because we weren't aware of how close we were getting or exactly when we would hit. I did not know what the engines would do. I suppose the main worry that we would have is that we would get a puncture in the hull and the engine room would fill in with water.
If anybody pulls any rifles, try not to all dive down there at the same time. Nigel, get ready on board. Get out of the way, you guys.
They seemed almost oblivious to us until finally they sort of looked up and realized, Jesus, these guys are coming in on us.
Let the horn go. Oh boy, we took out that machinery. Yeah, you took one out.
I shot my footage and ran out to the deck when this Japanese guy threw this cutting knife, flensing knife.
And I'm just panning, following the boat go by me down below. And then all of a sudden, one knife went right over my shoulder. And then another knife came up and went right underneath my feet and landed on the deck where Bob Hunter was.
Whoa, there comes a knife.
So he quite calmly picked it up and said, "Oh, got a souvenir."
I got a souvenir. They threw this at us. I was really glad that we were on a boat moving away at that point.
This is the Sea Shepherd. This is Sea Shepherd.
Sea Shepherd, repeat this ship.
Knock Greenpeace. Sea Shepherd Conservation Society.
Why are you close to my ship?
Because you're killing too many dolphins, whales, and birds, and taking too many fish. And you insulted us by calling us Greenpeace. Can you do us some damage control up there, Nigel, quick?
What's our damage?
Oh, we got a big hole up here just behind the anchor well. It goes right through. Looks like a cannonball came through.
Okay, so we got their power block, but they hold us.
Oh, yeah, but this is a welding job. That's a $20,000 piece of equipment.
All right, so we're going after another one now?
Yeah.
My only concern was that the Sea Shepherd is an old boat, so I wasn't quite sure how many batterings the boat would take before it began to fall apart. And I just knew this was a bad place, 1,000 miles north of Hawaii and 1,000 miles out from North America, surrounded by Japanese ships after you've just rammed a couple of them, for your boat to go down.
As soon as we hit the first vessel, we knew that we'd achieved what we needed to do, so then we made a beeline for the second vessel.
This time, everybody be really, really careful.
If they got guns, they're going to shoot this wheelhouse, okay?
Now we have no idea how they're going to react because they've seen the damage we've caused to the other vessel, so they might be even angrier.
If someone's going to shoot at the Sea Shepherd, they're going to shoot the wheelhouse.
Okay, turn the tape on. Here we go.
The closer we got, the higher the Sea Shepherd would rise. Our bow was at least 15 feet above their bow because of this wake. So from the Japanese point of view, it must have been quite a terrifying sight to see this big black bow rise on the wake and then tower above them and then come slamming down.
The power block, do you think, Mark?
Yeah, the power block's gone.
2 down.
2 down.
All right.
Went in, destroyed the power block, severed the net, and broke away to go after a third vessel.
Okay. Number 3, huh? Number 3. Sure, we got some tape.
The captain was getting ready to take out another one, and all of a sudden we go dead in the water.
The lights keep flickering back there.
Oh, great. Get that other generator up. Come on.
All the lights went off, the steering went, everything went.
What's happening down there?
All right. We need a fire station. We're in a fire station.
Oh, give me a break.
It only takes a couple of minutes to put the power back on the line and get the steering going again and everything. But those crucial minutes might have been the difference between actually getting the ship and not catching the ship.
They were moving out. They didn't want anything more to do with us.
So that's 2 knocked out and 1 fleeing the area. The other ones have all gone from sight, so it looks like Watson has successfully cleared the zone of drift netters.
In their panic to escape, they'd left the drift net behind. So we doubled back and scooped up the net and then attached all these heavy metal parts to it and sank it.
There it goes. And it's starting to take the drift net down with it.
The operation had been a success, so we broke out the champagne, popped the corks, and all hung around in the wheelhouse feeling pretty good.
This encounter with the Japanese fleet ended with 2 disabled vessels and another in retreat, but it was far from over. The Sea Shepherd returned to Hawaii and immediately held a press conference to draw attention to the incident and to invite the Japanese to press charges. Here's what happened next.
Your law into your own hands by doing this. What would you answer to that?
Well, it's about time somebody did something about it. We are vigilantes, but that's only because the U.S. government, the Canadian government don't seem to have the courage to go out there and uphold these treaties and laws and regulations. Even though the video was shown on Japanese television, Japan absolutely denied that this incident took place. They said none of their vessels were rammed, that none of their nets were sunk. But we had the video to prove that, in fact, we were telling the truth. So it's no longer our word against the government of a nation. It's our documentation against the word of the government of the nation. It's just part of the process, a part of fighting the battle. But there's no real gratification until we can shut them down.
The Sea Shepherd Society claims that in all of its intense battles with illegal drift netters, no lives have been lost and no one has been injured. Later on Eyewitness